A late-night drive out on the long stretch of road, the stars glistening within the dark sky. It seems so peaceful when you finally get out of the city. A man uttered a sigh as he continued on his way. His name was Robin, a well-mannered individual who lives a pretty stressful life. He works at an office desk, constantly staring at the computer screen, doing things the company tells him to do. It strains his eyes, and there aren't any natural things around him, except for the other people beside him, doing the same thing every day. He works and works until he's the last person to leave the building. Then he goes home, with no greeting from anyone. He flops onto bed with an exhale of his exhaustion and drifts off to sleep. Then the cycle repeats. But tonight is different. He's decided to take a break that he deserves. The feel of the warm wind blowing against his face, looking from side to side as woodland creatures and tall trees are spread about. Robin drove out as far away as he could from the city, not wanting to hear any of the annoying cars driving past him every time, not wanting to see skyscrapers blocking his view of the beautiful world. All he wanted was just peace, an escape from his cycle. All was well and good for him, until he realized his car was low on gas. He stopped for a second and looked around to see if there were any places nearby. Nothing but trees, the sky, and the road ahead. Darn it, I knew I should have came prepared, he muttered to himself. He climbed out of his car and took a flashlight with him just in case he couldn't see anything. After all, the sky isn't always trustworthy with its light. Robin climbed over the metal fences that blocked the cars to enter within this forest. There was a strong thought in his head that screamed out, "This is a terrible idea." But through determination and desperation, he marched on. He never knew how thick and large these woods would have been. He told himself he wasn't alone. There were animals and insects of all sizes around him. It was true. However, they knew their way around these parts. He didn't. Robin was mindlessly lurking in one single direction to find at least a spark of light. But that hope soon withered away as fear and paranoia started clawing up its back. His flashlight died as soon as he turned around to go back. And it dawned on him. Even when he was going in a straight direction, he wouldn't remember which direction he came from. Since this was also his first time going to the woods, nothing looks familiar to him. He was stranded in a forest clearing with a dead flashlight. Robin groaned in disappointment as he hung his head low, slumping down on a nearby tree. Tired and alone, his eyelids started to slowly close themselves shut, ready to fall asleep. His body relaxed itself, and his head started to tilt to the side. He thought to himself that perhaps getting lost in the woods wasn't such a bad predicament. He doesn't have to worry about his schedule, his boss, or anything that involved his job. He didn't have to worry about being so alone, because he was with so many fascinating creatures. Robin didn't have to worry about a thing anymore, because to him, he was at peace. But as soon as slumber fell on him, something caught him before he could sink into the void. It was a sound, a quick rustle of the leaves, nothing at all like the wind blowing against the trees. There was something wrong about that sound. It was too quick, nothing like a deer or bird could have made. It wasn't even loud. He lifted himself off of the bark and furiously looked around, trying to keep himself level-headed, kept himself quiet. Whatever it was will appear eventually. A drip of sweat fell off of his cheeks and onto his shoulder. Then as he was about to turn around to see if anything was behind him, a shadow, as tall as the trees surrounding him, loomed over. What was behind him wasn't an animal. It looked almost human. It was quiet, still, and unnerving. No facial features of any kind. Skin, or what perceived as skin, was solid white. Its body was lithe and lengthy. It appeared to be wearing a suit, just a normal black suit. It tilted its head downward, as if it was looking at Robin. It seemed intrigued, but he was utterly terrified. He couldn't even speak a word, his voice trapped in the middle of its throat. He staring helplessly as the tall figure continuously stood there with no subtle movements. Robin, petrified, then started to feel something in his head. It was a slow pulse. It's as if something triggered a headache. And it grew more and more rapid, and wider in range, causing him to fall to his knees. Whispers started to be heard in his ears, hard to hear clearly at first, but formed into phrases. You are broken. Must be silent. Do not look. Flooded with confusion and pain, it became extremely nauseating and distorted, spilling out pleads and outbursts of vomit onto the forest floor. But no one could hear, and it does not care. Tears filled Robin's eyes as he wished and begged for all of this to be just a nightmare. He clung to the creature's feet, but all it did was have its head hung low. It was then picked up by its tendrils, being properly positioned, not letting its next victim to escape from the grasp. Scared and unwilling, he tried with all of his might to pull away or fight back, but to no avail. The figure pulled out what seemed to be a mask, placing it easily onto him. The mask latched onto him, seemingly sewing itself onto the face of its owner. The mask's expression morphed between different expressions, but ultimately fell onto one specifically to end the humanity within Robin. Unending happiness.